Sometimes when rendering, you don't want to render the entire image. If I were to go ahead and hit an F9, and I decided that I liked everything that was going on, but I wanted to focus on this area of the surfacing or lighting. I just want to focus in on this. Well, there's no reason to render the entire area. What I can do is I can just limit the area that I want to render here. And that option is under the Render tab, and you have Limited Region. Now, I could activate it here, and we get handles that we can work with. If I click it again, it doesn't go away, and if I click it again, then I turn it off. So there was 2 clicks, and what that means is that there's 2 different options. You can render with borders or without borders. So although this option is on the interface, I prefer to go over to Render Globals, and activate it here so that I can decide what the setup is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and move my render out of the way, and I'm going to come over here to Limited Region, and right now it's set to off. I have Limited Region Borders. Okay, let me close this. I'm going to grab the handles, then I can click in the center and move where I want to render. So I want to render, say, this area right here. Okay, so I can test out different surface options and lighting options. And let me bring my window back over here, and I'm going to do a render. It's going to render much faster because I'm only working on this area right here. Okay, so render with borders, okay, limited region with borders will have the exact same frame size, but will only render this area. So this is useful for a lot of reasons. Well, first, I just cut rendering time down to a lot lower. If I page up, page down, I can test between the full render and this. Okay, if say I'm working on a sequence and I render all my passes and I'm compositing everything and I go, oh no, I forgot to do one thing right here on the surface, and I don't want to have to go re-render everything, well, I can just re-render this area and composite that on top of my other passes. Now, it makes it much easier to place it in the exact location if you render with borders. If I come over to Render Globals and change Limited Region with no border, it's going to render the same area, but it's not going to have the black area right here. So now toggling back and forth to do tests becomes a little different, because if I jump to this render, I jumped here, now my eye is shifting and I can't just go back and forth like I was able to here. Okay, so depending on what you're using the limited region for would determine which option you should use. So when using the option on the interface, the reason why I clicked another time and it still didn't go away is because it was toggling between limited region borders and limited region no borders. By default, when you click up here, it would be with borders, and if you click it again, you'll get no borders. So again, I prefer going to Render Globals to check these options, but it's whatever works faster for you. Okay, so that's using limited region. Okay, we can also use a masking option, and let's take a look at that. I'm going to turn limited region off, and you can see that the guides in the back went away. And I want to use the mask option. And if we go back to our render here, what if I want to mask it out? Say I want to do, like, I want a fake widescreen and I want those bars on top and bottom. Well, what I can do is set, I'm going to say on the top I want to go down 40 pixels, and I only want the height to be 400, so the bottom would have 40 pixels, and I'm going to do a render. Okay, and now I've got black bars on top and bottom. Now, I could have used limited region, but what limited region doesn't offer is the mask color. So I can come over here and pick a color and do a render. Okay, and now My bars are the RGB value that I assigned it under mask color. So if you just want black, go with limited region. It works fast and it's easy to set up. If you want color, equally as easy to set up is the masking option, which will afford you the the ability to color the area, the masked area. Okay, so that's just a quick look at two options, limited region and mask. One last thing on limited region. Well, why? Let's go ahead and turn the borders on. I'm going to turn the mask off. Um, why would you want to render just a small area instead of everything? Well, for test renders, it's not a bad thing, but there's also a bigger reason to use them, and that's if, say, you're wanting to render a print resolution image, say for a giant 24 by 36 poster, and it starts to bring your system to its knees because you're rendering such a large image. Well, what you can do is you can use the limited region option and say, I'm going to render this area and save it off. And then you can go, I'm going to render this area and save it off, and it's going to your system will be able to handle it even more on those giant images. And then all you have to do is go into Photoshop or a compositing package and stitch it together. Okay, so that's another benefit of using limited region, is to take super high resolution images, and if you want to render much faster, you can use the limited region option and just stitch the several images that you create together to create one image. Okay, so again, that's just a quick look at limited region. You can find it on the render tab here, limited region. Click again. It's going to turn the borders off. Click again and you deactivate it. And you can also access it in the render globals panel, and you can also access masks here as well.